It has been an incredible year for Test rugby. France have shown their class by going all 10 of their Tests unbeaten, Ireland made history by beating New Zealand for the first time in a series on Kiwi soil, and Wayne Pivac single-handedly drove Wales into the ground with losses to Italy, Georgia and Australia's third team. It's certainly fair to say that the year has had plenty to talk about, and with the run-up to the World Cup now well underway, I thought we'd take one last look back at the standout players in 2022. Amidst the wide range of events in 2022, there have been so many players that have stood out on the world stage, making headlines by demonstrating their incredible skill set and wide range of abilities. It's incredible to see that World Rugby is producing so many superstars with new talents still emerging onto the scene every single week. I decided to look back across the displays of brilliance that we've seen across the year and attempted to pull together who I believe were the best of the best in 2022. I would just like to reiterate that everything in this video is entirely my opinion and not something that I consider to be fact, nor do I believe that everybody should think this way. If you have a different opinion to me, then please by all means share it in the comments below, but I ask that you keep it all respectful so that we can uphold the values of our great game and simply have a nice discussion about our thoughts. It proved hard, but I did it. I assembled what I believe is the best World 15 of the year. If there's one man that's lived up to his nickname, it's Bristol Bears' Ellis Genge. The baby rhino has caused complete mayhem and destruction on the world stage this year. Perhaps one of the best ball carriers and heaviest hitters certainly the game has seen in recent years, Ellis Genge had a brilliant season in 2022, captaining his now former club Leicester Tigers to their first title in nearly a decade, and also standing out on the international scene. He has a huge presence on the field, with his carrying ability being a huge asset to England, Leicester and now of course Bristol. My personal highlights of his many big moments this year were his complete and utter demolitions of Marika Koroibete and Michael Hooper in the Australia Test Series this year, and with former Leicester boss Steve Borthwick now in charge of England, could we see Ellis Genge take the captaincy for his country in 2023? My honourable mentions for the Loosehead Prop shirt include Frenchman Cyril Bay, who was very close to beating Ellis Genge to this spot, Irishman Andrew Porter and Danilo Vaschetti, the Italian. The player taking the hooker shirt was another man vital to Leicester's title-winning season. Argentine Julian Montoya was one of the most consistent performers for both club and country throughout 2022. Whilst maybe not the man to make all the headlines as some of the other hookers in the world this year, I think Montoya has been perhaps the most reliable front row player in 2022. The Pumas captain proved irreplaceable in historic wins over both New Zealand and England, and his standout breakdown technique was a real asset to the Argentine team. The man could easily challenge the world's best back rowers in the ruck department with an abundance of turnovers this year. Despite many of his absolutely brilliant moments, there is one standout favourite for me.
There's some maturity here and get on with it. Oh, that's...
Set an example, big fella.
What a sledge.
Really good example, you must be number one.
My honourable mentions for the hooker shirt include three players that were very close to making my team: Springbok Malcolm Marx, Frenchman Julien Marchand and All Black Samisoni Tokiaho. There aren't many tighthead props in the world that can sling 30-metre pinpoint accurate passes, step world-class fly halves with their footwork ability, yet still maintain the brilliance of a world-class front rower. But Tadhg Furlong can. He's simply one of the most incredible athletes in the world. It's not unheard of to see him go 70 minutes, sometimes even the full 80 of a test, while still maintaining his amazing scrummaging ability and all-round hard work. He has magical ball handling skills which have allowed him to fit right into the Leinster and Ireland teams, both of which like to play expansive forwards ball handling rugby. There is no doubt in my mind that Tadhg Furlong is the best tighthead prop in the world, and it feels like there are still many more seasons to come of him in a green jersey. My honourable mentions include another Frenchman, Weenie Antonio, Taniela Tupou the Wallaby, and of course Franz Malherbe, who was brilliant in a Springbok jersey. This list simply wouldn't be complete without mention of the Springboks' mighty enforcer. For me, Eben Etzebeth is the best second row player in the world, and it was criminal for World Rugby to leave them out of the Dream 15 of the year. Teams fear this man. Groups of seasoned elite players struggle to deal with the immense power and strength that he brings when he performs for both club and country. There are few players that have had impacts on their international team in quite the way that Eben Etzebeth has. The South African team looks lacklustre without him, and all of a sudden confident and comfortable when his presence is reinstated on the field. You've only got to look at the test this year against Italy when he came on from the bench and he had a real impact on the team, they all of a sudden started to click and started to perform. I should also mention that he quite rightly became a Test centurion this year with over 100 caps now in the green and gold jersey, perhaps helping him on his way to becoming the best Springbok player ever. My honourable mentions for the first shirt in the second row include Maro Itoje, who still had a brilliant year but slightly underperformed compared to what we've seen him before, Brodie Retallick, who also reached 100 tests in an All Black jersey, and finally James Ryan. The second Tig on the list comes in the form of Tig Burn, and what a season he's had. There isn't a single game I've seen Burn play this year where his name wasn't mentioned at least 3 times for an incredible moment of brilliance. Whether it was winning a vital turnover in a breakdown, flying through the air to steal opposition ball at a line-out, or even kicking a 50-22, Burn never went long without producing a moment that stunned the crowd throughout the year. He continued his work on the international stage with his club Munster, who narrowly missed out in a famous quarter-final tie with 5 times champions Toulouse. He not only played in the second row but also showed his flexibility on the park by playing at Blindside Flanker as well. My honourable mentions for the second position in the second row go to All Blacks Sam Whitelock and the 2 Frenchmen Cameron Woki and Paul Willemse. I don't think that there is a single player that I admire more than Michele Lamaro after the year he had in 2022. The Italian captain showed the most inspiring determination, desire and heart as he led the Azzurri to a new era of Italian rugby. Hard work forms the bedrock of his performance, and he demonstrates leadership qualities that we haven't seen since Richie McCaw's days in an All Black jersey finished in the 2015 final. He demonstrates all the values of rugby, mixing his intense desire and passion with a sharply tuned discipline and sense of control. Few players made more tackles than him this year. As perhaps one of the hardest working players in the world, he's spearheading the way into the next chapter for the Italian rugby team. In many ways it feels like we're watching another Richie McCaw take to the field, but we're not. It's Michele Lamaro, remember the name. My honourable mentions for Blindside Flanker include England's Courtney Laws, Ireland's Peter O'Mahony and Springbok captain Sia Khaleesi. This list simply had to include Josh van der Flier. The World Player of the Year is the 3rd Irishman to make it on the list, and what a season he's had. Few players stood out to the level that he did, pulling out stunning performances for both Leinster and Ireland throughout the year. There's not a single game where he went missing amongst the chaos. He remained an ever-present threat at the breakdown, a constant carrying threat, and he was a perfect example of a player that seemed to get better and better with each game he played. Not many players were able to have the same impact on the rugby world as he did across 2022, and whilst there is one player that I would have picked ahead of him for World Player of the Year, he is certainly deserving of his title. My honourable mentions include Englishman Tom Curry, Wallaby legend Michael Hooper and young Argentine Juan Martín Gonzalez. The fact that this man wasn't named World Player of the Year, let alone even nominated, quite frankly astounds me. In my opinion, Ardie Savea is the best player in the world, and he had an absolute belter of a year in 2022. His absence is very noticeable in the All Black side, which is a true testament to his ability when a nation with such rugby talent as New Zealand struggles to fill the vacuum he leaves when he's not in the team. His strength and athleticism on the park are valued assets, and his feats of brilliance such as his outrageous dummies and his excellent defensive sets should have been enough to make him World Player of the Year for 2022 in my eyes. My honourable mentions for the number 8 jersey include Frenchman Gregory Aldrit, who I was desperate to fit into the team after the brilliant year he had, Irishman Caelan Doris and Englishman Alex Dombrand. Perhaps a contender for the greatest scrum half ever, there are few players in the world that have demonstrated such natural talent and flair as the fabulous Frenchman Antoine Dupont. His presence on the field is simply reassuring to all those backing their blood, and he's only continued his star-striking form from his World Player of the Year winning season in 2021. Not only has he continued to work his magic and produce moments of pure spectacle, but he's improved as well with his kicking game and identification of space, becoming yet another valued weapon that he can add to his arsenal. Teams envy his attacking prowess, and we can be sure to keep expecting these big performances as we move towards his home World Cup in 2023. My honourable mentions for the Scrum Half shirt include Aaron Smith, Jamieson Gibson Park and Faf de Klerk. Magic Marcus, the Messiah, England's golden boy, pick whatever name you like. Marcus Smith is one hell of a player. Perhaps the second coming of Johnny Wilkinson, in the words of Alistair Eakins.
This guy's got something very, very special.
And he really has. Few players have such natural talent and presence on a rugby pitch quite like Marcus Smith does. Off the back of his groundbreaking league-winning season with Quins in 2021 and a Lions call-up, Smith was thrown straight into the deep end of Test rugby, where he started to show his natural flair and his ability that he'd already demonstrated in the Premiership, but also more importantly began to show his development into a more level-headed, mature Test rugby player. He is able to create something out of absolutely nothing by using his brilliant goose step or delaying passes to put runners through gaps. He has also shown his progression of maturity in the 10 jersey, with his performance against the All Blacks in the Autumn Nation Series being the cherry on top of his Test performances so far. There are no players quite like him, and I had practically no hesitation in writing his name next to the number 10 on my team sheet. My honourable mentions include Frenchman Romain Ntamack, Irish legend Johnny Sexton, and Magic Boy, who's on his way to Bath, Finn Russell. Damien Penaud is a try-scoring machine, a top-flight winger for Clermont and of course the French international team. It takes a lot to keep this man from reaching the white line, as he added 8 tries to his Test total in 2022. Frenchman is perhaps the best finisher in the game, combining incredible strength and electric pace that adds so much flair and excitement to France's game. The team would most certainly feel incomplete without Penaud running up the touchline, and he's yet another Frenchman that's looking forward to putting in a big challenge at his home World Cup. My honourable mentions include Springbok Makazole Mapimpi, the incredible Argentine Emiliano Buffelli, and Wales winger Josh Adams. Whilst his primary position may be at the back of the field, I simply had to fit Geordie Barrett into my World 15. He would be wearing 15 if it weren't for the brilliance of another upcoming name on my list. Barrett's presence on the rugby field is extremely important for the All Blacks, and this season has seen Ian Foster experiment with him at 12, an experiment that I believe has been a success. Not only does he bring strength in both attack and defence, but he is very reliable under the high ball and is perhaps the best goal kicker in world rugby right now. Teams fear that their indiscipline will be punished almost anywhere their side of the halfway line, with his range even extending beyond that. He is a highly reliable player who's proved a great asset to the All Blacks, and I simply had to fit him into my team. My honourable mentions include South African Damien Dialende, underrated Welshman Nick Tompkins, and Jonathan Dante. I think that what little of Lukanyuan we saw this year was still more than enough to cement his place in the Team of the Year for 2022. He picked up an injury during the year that led him to miss out on a lot of rugby, but he still displayed several moments of brilliance on the international stage. He was key to the Springboks Rugby Championship win in one of the games against the All Blacks, and he showed his complete and utter class for the Sharks in the URC. Like several on the list before him, Am has such incredible natural ability that allows him to read the game in a way that not many other players can. Despite his lack of Test minutes, he was still, for me, the best outside centre of the year. My honourable mentions for the 13 jersey go to Scotsman Chris Harris, Irishman Gary Ringrose, and one of my personal favourite players, Hunter Paisami. Next on the list is another player whose injury troubles have led them to miss out on the Autumn Nation Series, but didn't prevent them from playing some of their best Test rugby in 2022. Will Jordan for me is a man who could well nail down that 14 jersey for a long time in the New Zealand setup. Not only did he play a vital role in yet another Super Rugby title for the Crusaders, but he also showed his class in the Rugby Championship and the Test Series against Ireland. He has bags of pace to burn, and he's shown that he can score tries for fun in Test rugby. Definitely a man I had to have in my World 15 of the year. My honourable mentions include breakthrough Springbok Kurtley Arendse, Louis Rees-Zammit and Darcy Graham. I'm going to state it outright. There is no better fullback in the world than Freddie Stewart. There is nobody in 2022 that has owned their jersey quite like Stewart has. He burst onto the international scene in 2021 and has only continued his phenomenal form that he showed last year. His ability under the high ball is second to none, and he's probably our best defence in the case of an asteroid strike. His aerial dominance is perhaps the most valued asset to the England backfield, something which is so incredibly important in the modern game. Anyone who contests him in the air will come off second best 99% of the time, as they struggle to compete with Stewart's brilliance in the air. His ability on the counter-attack is excellent, with such strength and pace that has allowed him to be England's top try scorer this year. I have absolutely no hesitation whatsoever in calling Freddie Stewart the world's best fullback. My honourable mentions for the 15 jersey include heroic Italian Ange Capuozzo, Hugo Keenan and Thomas Ramos. So there you have it, that was my Team of the Year for 2022. I'd just like to state again that everything in this video was entirely my opinion, and I would love to see the teams that you guys have put together and how it compares to what I've done in this video. By all means, please leave your thoughts down in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, I would really appreciate a like. If you like my rugby content, then I'd really recommend clicking that subscribe button and heading over to my channel to check out the content that I've already released and also the content that I'm going to release in the future. I'd recommend clicking on the video titled England Autumn Nation Series 2020, What Happened. I really enjoyed making that video, so head over there once you're done here and see what you think. But that's it for now. I hope you all have a great day. I hope you stay safe and most importantly, keep enjoying your rugby.